If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's the easiest way to make a podcast, all in one place. Download for free the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That is ANCHOR.FM. Enjoy. Good evening, and just wanted to take this time to do a bonus episode for the Running Educator Podcast. I completed the toughest half marathon, Robbie Creek, numerous times in the years past, and yesterday I did it twice, so completing the Double Robie, which is pretty nuts, which makes it, the toughest marathon. So as long as everybody knows the climb to Adobe Summit, and others call it the Rite of the Spring, as it arrives each year in the Boise foothills just before or on tax day. It has been proclaimed as the toughest race in the Northwest, but no matter what you label it, it's the annual race to Robbie Creek is a challenge for everybody who is to partake. Little history on this race to Robbie Creek. It was August 16th, 1975, when Boise and John Robertson and 24 other participants competed in what first to be called the Idaho Summer Road Racing Championship. They would start at Fort Boise, and then up the Reserve Street and Shaw Mountain Road, and then climbed a long way up to Rocky Canyon and just over Adobe Summit, which is elevation of 4,790 feet, to a 13.1 mile finish to Robbie Creek Campground near Lucky Peak Reservoir, which that elevation is 3,065. Combining a half marathon distance was only 2,072 feet and 1,732 foot descent, which would rather quite birth of the Rocky Canyon Snail Toads and the race to Robbie Creek. So my intentions of this podcast today is to kind of share my race report, and I've always wanted to do the race to Robbie Creek. Well, I've done the race to Robbie Creek, but I've always wanted to do the Double Robie. I did take part of the one-time episode that they had of Race to Robbie Creek, the Double Robie, and the Adobe Challenge. I took part of the Adobe Challenge, which was 18 miles. Just wasn't ready and thought that Double Robie would be totally crazy. But so this, again, is going to be more of a promotion of Robbie Creek. And this year's event, due to COVID, is a virtual event. You can get onto the podcast and find the Race to Robbie Creek virtual sign-up. You can basically, from April 1st, I believe, to April 15th, you have that time to get your 13.1 miles in for the Race to Robbie Creek medal. So the race report, I'm going to take you step by step by it. And so kind of goes back to doing Robbie Creek. My best time I ever did Robbie Creek was an hour 48, and then my worst was 2:30. So I figured I would stick with the Double Robie, running at the 2:30 timeline, so making it about a 5.5 hour ordeal. So I wanted to complete this run within that time, which I did break my goal down into further with more getting to the summit within 90 minutes, so an hour and a half, starting at 6:15. We did get there just before the sunrise, which is right around 7:30, and it was a pretty cold morning. We saw 4 deer, about 20 wild turkeys, and a dead skunk. For the most part, Rocky Canyon Road was pretty dry. I was pretty worried because I've seen Robbie Creek when it's just run off and lots of bad things can happen. And There wasn't any of that, but right when we got up to Adobe Summit, that's when the snow was still up there. It was pretty packed, pretty hard. Looked like concrete, like any kind of slipped. Definitely get a nice little gnash on the feet. I was more worried about my foot being sprained or my ankle being sprained, but so that was one thing to worry about. Didn't really matter, but once we got up top, it was such a beautiful sight to see the sunrise. And again, all the way through running through the canyon, you could just hear the stream of the creek. It was amazing, very therapeutic. The downhill part, which was, just as bad, if not gotten to worse from the summit. Again, worried about foot placement, since now I'm going downhill, trying to track my feet and trying to not misplace my steps, and it was pretty gnarly. But got through that. About 2 miles down, it was all nice. During that time, I got to take my tree bath, which, going through the forest, the pine cones, pine needles, the smell of pine, it was just very therapeutic, very nice to have. No sounds of the creek until you got down to 2 miles below, getting closer to Robbie Creek. But the road was pretty dry. They did pave it. I didn't realize that they paved Robbie Creek, but it was pretty crazy. When we did arrive to Robbie Creek, right around the 2:30 mark, I felt pretty good. Felt all right. I had a little bit of pain going into my left hip, which has been an issue of mine, and one of the reasons why I did this challenge is to work on my taper and work on my balance, and basically finding more yoga and more stretch, because I've just been really tight. But the scenery of Lucky Peak Reservoir just being drained was kind of eerie, because usually that time a lot of people were partying and playing in the reservoir, and Robbie Creek was just silent. There was nobody there. So with that in mind, I took a quick photo and said, hey, I'm heading back out. Probably by then the sun was just over the tree line, so on the way back up, I just wanted to keep a 15-minute pace. Kept on going until we got back up to 2 miles after more snow and more ice. At this time, it was a little more crustier just because the sun was getting out. I did have more pain in the back of my hamstring, and now it was on the left side of my knee. I just kind of grinned and bared it. Didn't want to have my monkey mind or enemy mind to slow me down and tell me otherwise. So I kept on going, which was not good. I just figured when I got to the top, I'd just let gravity, do its thing. But when I got back to Adobe for the second time, I just did a quick stretch and did my thing and just kept on going forward. At this time, Endurolytes, electricity, hydration, food, everything was great. It was just my left hip was just not happy. So 5 mile downhill, I just let gravity go. I kept a good 12-minute pace. Felt pretty good. Just kind of grin and bared through the pain. But then it kind of started to suck, because if anybody knows this course, it starts to level out, and then you got to go back up Rocky Canyon out to Shaw Mountain Road. And I walked up to it, and then at this point, I basically went to my reserve of the trouble ratio run, which I call. Basically, I go to a 2 mile run and then a 1 mile walk, and that helps me keep a good pace throughout the entire time. Definitely in the pain cave then, because it was just I was just hobbling. It was horrible, but I got through it. It was all good. Cool thing is some stats. My maximum heart rate for that day was 159. My average was 131. Best pace was at 6:30. My average pace was at 12:46, which my worst pace was at 17 minutes per mile, which was going up Adobe the first time around. My finishing time was 5 hours and 20 minutes, which I crushed my goal. I gave myself a good, bad, and really horrible goal. But I did pretty well. I know I gotta take this week off of running, which is going to be hard on the mental. But I've been that's been part of the process of just battling things as you go. But for the month of March, I've ran, 120 miles, which has been a lot. So I need to recover. I need to get ready for my next challenge in April. I got my next goal. So do what you can. And basically that's the biggest thing I would do is, taken away from this race report, I felt really good with my nutrition, felt really good with my hydration. I feel good training. Probably did a little overkill on the running for the month, but just trying to train for these ultras I have coming up in June and July. The crazy idea that we thought about at the end of it was doing triple Robie. So we'll see how that goes. But going for the last part, working on my recovery. I did take an ice bath, which sucks. So if you ever taken an ice bath, don't move when you're in those things, because that's when everything shuffles around and needles set back in. Been foaming, have a massage gun, been doing that. Lots of ibuprofen, which I'm not a big fan of, but whatever to help me get through. Been stretching a bunch. My hamstrings are just angry with me, and that's the end of the Double Robie fiasco. But I appreciate you taking the time to listen. If you do like what you like to hear and you want to hear some more of my other stories, not just running but educational stuff and financial stuff, check out runningeducator.com on Google. You can also check us out on Twitter, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, WordPress, everywhere, LinkedIn. Follow me there if you can. Would love to hear your, if you want to leave a voice message, we have a link on our deal, so you can leave a voice message on the next show. I'd love to hear your reviews, because if I'm doing something bad, doing something wrong, let me know what I'm doing so that way I can get better. And then at the end of the day, I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to the Running Educator Podcast. With that being said, keep running and keep learning. Have a good day.